Welcome to the 8-Bit Instructor Podcast, a show dedicated to helping you level up your instruction in order to craft authentic learning experiences for both you and your students. I'm your host, Lee Tucker, a high school English teacher and ed tech enthusiast, and I want to join you on your journey to becoming the best instructor that you possibly can. So if you're ready, grab your adventuring gear and let's get going. Hey, what's up, 8-Bit crew? Today is Thursday, April 22nd, and this is episode 37 of the 8-Bit Instructor Podcast. Welcome back, folks. I've got a great show lined up for you. Later on in the boss battle, I'm going to take a look at some tips and features that you may not know about Google Drive. So, using Google Drive to help you stay organized and find things easy. That's always been a struggle for me. And so I love a lot of the stuff that's available in Google Drive to help me find things that I need more quickly than I might otherwise be able to find them. So stay tuned for that. I got a nice little treasure chest piece of wisdom coming up for you later on. But first, we're going to take a look at some news and updates from around the education world. There's not a whole lot going on, but there are some Google updates that have come out and are going to be rolling out soon. So first of all, I want to talk about a new feature in Originality Reports where school matches will be available for Originality Reports for some Google Workspace for Education members. Now, keep in mind, this is just going to be a feature for anybody with the Education Plus or the Teaching and Learning upgrade. So if you're on the free version of that, you will not be able to do this. But essentially what it allows you to do is your IT admin can enable this feature, and any submitted assignment that is submitted through Google Classroom will automatically be added to a private school repository after the an originality report is run, and then it will basically be added to a database that any future documents will be included in some of that flagged content. So let's say you have a student who turns an assignment in and you work through that, run the originality report and all that kind of stuff. It would go into this database, and then maybe 2 weeks later, some student who never turned it in or turns it in really late just copies that previous one. That will now be available for you to check. So that's a cool feature if any of you have the Education Plus or the Teaching and Learning upgrade. I know most of the time a lot of copied stuff is not necessarily copied from the internet, it's from other students, so it's good to have that feature available. There are some new Chrome features coming out. So first of all, there is the ability to link a highlighted text. So let's say you're reading an article and you're, scroll down further down the page and you've got a little something that you want to share with someone else. You could send them the link to the article and then tell them you got to, go down about halfway and you'll see this. Now what you can do though is you can actually highlight that, and then when you right click on the highlight, there's an option to copy link to highlight. What this will do will create a specific link to that section of the web page. So when you send that link to someone else, they don't have to do the scrolling down. It will automatically go down there for them and have that stuff highlighted. It's actually something that you may or may not have noticed it in Google search too. I've noticed it a few times when I would be searching for something. I can't think of something off the top of my head, but I was doing a search and one of the top results had a highlighted sentence or two, and I noticed that when I clicked on the link, it automatically scrolled down the page some. So maybe that is also something that is available in the Google search engine. The new PDF reader has some new features on it. You'll be able to see it's kind of got a new layout. There's you can see the document properties. There's a 2-page view. The top toolbar has been updated, putting some of the most important PDF actions up there, such as zooming, jumping to a specific page, saving, printing, and all that to be able to do within a single click. Another one for those of you who are still doing a lot of stuff virtually, Chrome will now mute any notifications if you're sharing your screen. So some of you may have had instances where you were sharing your screen with students or colleagues or whatever, and then a notification popped up on your computer and everyone else saw it too. So that will now be muted in Google Chrome, and it will unmute as soon as your screen is not being shared anymore. And then finally, there are some Chrome performance improvements that are coming out. So those of you who have used Chrome for a long time know that one of the big things against it has been that it really eats up computer memory and the CPU. And Google has been doing a lot of stuff to work on improving that. The new updates to Chrome will now have some decreased CPU usage, which typically means you got more battery life if you're on a laptop. Less fan noise, less heat. I know a lot of times at school, it feels like my fan is on like all day because I've got so much stuff open. So that will be nice for that to happen. They're saying up to 100 megabytes per tab will be decreased, which is more than 20% on some popular websites. Very soon, also, any collapsed tab groups will freeze, so they won't be constantly reloading and refreshing. So that will eat up a lot less memory and CPU. And then another, not performance related, but just another interesting Chrome feature is going to be the ability to name the windows. So if you've got multiple windows, maybe with tabs grouped together, you can actually name them. That way, when you are sifting through some of the various Chrome windows, you can actually see which one it is, so that you don't have to keep going to various ones. So some pretty cool features coming up there for Google and Google Chrome. And that's pretty much all of the news and updates that I found this week. So we're going to go ahead and move along and open up the treasure chest. So I've got a quote today coming out of the treasure chest, and it comes from Jim Rohn, and that quote says, "You don't get paid for the hour, you get paid for the value you bring to the hour." And I thought that would just be a nice reminder, especially at this time of year, that, we get roughly an hour with our students, whether you are face-to-face or, if you're virtual, who knows how much time you actually get with them and all that. But in a typical school year, we get about an hour with our students, and it's honestly not a lot of time if we talk about the whole scope of the day, but added up over the course of a year, we have the ability to do some tremendous things with these students. So keep in mind that, we're not just there to be warm bodies in a classroom supervising students. We are there to bring value to them, to educate them, to make them better people, to make them good citizens and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I would challenge you with is to think, what kind of value are you bringing into that hour of your class, or if you're in some of the lower levels, all day, what kind of value are you bringing? And if you don't feel like you're bringing value, what can we add? What are some things that you can do to add more value to that hour? Because I know from experience, if you're just there to get a paycheck, and if you're just there to do test prep, it tends to be a pretty miserable time. So how can we add value and enjoyment to the time that we do have? So there's my thought for today. We're going to go ahead and move along. Up next, I'm going to take a look at some tips and features that you may not know about Google Chrome. And that's coming up in this week's Boss Battle. Last week, I talked a lot about things in Google Docs to use, and I'm kind of continuing on with a little bit of Google stuff this week. What we're looking at this week is things that you might not know about Google Drive. So Google Drive is, it's files and folders and storage systems and all that, but there are actually several features in there that you may not know about that are actually pretty helpful and can help you not only stay organized, but be able to find things very easily in Google Drive. So I'm just going to walk through a few things and let you know some tips and tricks to making the best use of Google Drive this week. First of all, I want to start with just a couple of visual elements that can help you stay organized and, again, find things very easily. So the first is color coding your folders. If you did not know, you can actually change the color of a folder in your Google Drive. So if you right click on a folder and then you go down and hover over color change, that option will pull up a little palette and then you can select from several different colors. So you could color code your different folders for different things. So I might have a particular class and different folders connected to that class color coded in one way, my lesson plan folder in a different way, or however you need to do that, you can come up with your own color system to easily see the different folders that you commonly use. Another visual element that is also helpful along these same lines is using emojis. So you can use emojis in file names and folder names, and I have found it very helpful to add an emoji to different folders to help make them visually easier to see. So I might just find an emoji that kind of thematically connects to it. So for my multicultural lit class, I've got a couple of globe emojis that I put at the beginning and at the end of the name. For my lesson plans, I've got a calendar emoji that I use. And so what I can do is I visually see those a lot quicker than I read the text for those different things. Also, by using emojis, that if you sort by name, it actually puts all of that at the top of your folders. So you have that alphabetical thing, but all the emoji icons, if they're at the beginning of the folder name, will go to the very top. So it makes it a little bit easier to find some of those folders that you use very often. And just a little tip that I like to use is instead of just using one single emoji icon, I will usually do about 2 or 3, even if it's the same emoji at the beginning and at the end, just to make it stand out even more. So the next thing is looking at adding shortcuts. So this has a lot more to do with files that are shared with you. If you're in education, if you're in a school, then you are probably getting tons of files shared with you from students, from your teammates, your coworkers, from administrators. Some of those files you might only look at once or twice. Some of them you might refer back to throughout the year. So particularly for those ones that you use often, adding a shortcut to your drive can be very helpful. Without that, everything goes into that shared with me section, and let's say at this point in the year, something that was shared with you back in August or September or whatever is going to be way down that list in the share with me file. And yeah, you could search for it and all that, but adding a shortcut to your drive can be very beneficial as well. So what this is, think of this, I like that they have changed the wording to shortcut. It used to just say add to drive, which made it a little confusing about what it actually does. So this doesn't actually copy the file to your drive. It is more like a link to that original file. If you think of it in terms of most desktop computers, if you created a shortcut to put on the desktop, you can just click on that file and open it up without having to go through all the different folders and all that. It's the same thing. So you can take that and add the shortcut to your drive. All you got to do, just look for the little Google Drive logo with the plus on it. So there's one in the right click menu if you do that, or when you click on a file, you'll see a toolbar appear toward the top of the drive, and it's got that drive with the plus logo on it, icon as well. So when you do that, it adds that shortcut to your base drive folder, and then you can take that and you can move that file around, that shortcut around, put it in whatever folders you need to. So if you have, like, let's say, several documents that your administration has shared with you, you can have an administration folder. When you make those shortcuts in your drive, you can just drag them into whatever folder you need to. So again, it helps you organize a little bit. You don't have to keep going back to the shared with me section or doing searches to find all that stuff. All right, so my next tip is actually using templates and creating files from templates. So if you've used Google Drive, you know how to create a new doc. You just click the new button and then select what it is you want to do, a new doc or a new sheet or new slides or whatever. But a lot of people don't realize that there are actual templates that you can use to create maybe some specifics. So what you do is when you click that new, instead of clicking on doc or sheet or whatever, you can hover over the little arrow and it will pull up a new submenu, and there's an option to create a new document from a template. So let's say I wanted to make like a calendar. There's a calendar template for Google Sheets. So instead of me trying to create a blank sheet and then adding all the stuff for a calendar in there, when you click on the from a template option, it will take you to the Sheets website. And so all of these, if you don't know, are just the app.google. So if I want a new sheets, that's sheets.google.com or docs.google.com, and you can see all the templates there. So if I clicked on the template thing, it would take me to the Google Sheets site, and then I can see the calendar option, and it's going to create a calendar template for me, and then I can tweak it however I need to. So that's a great way to utilize something like that to save you time and even some frustration with trying to figure some of that stuff out. And it works for pretty much all the Google apps. Docs has templates, Sheets, Slides, even Google Forms has templates. If you want to do a quiz in Google Forms, you can create a quiz from a quiz template that's in there. So make sure to check that out. And kind of on top of that, in a similar area, you may not know that you can connect a lot of third-party apps to your drive directly. And if you've been following some of Google's updates, you might be aware that they're starting to integrate some of that stuff into Google Classroom, but you can also do this in Google Drive. So when you click on that new button, instead of looking at docs or sheets or slides, go down to the more section, and then you'll get another sub menu with some of the other ones. So you might see something like Google Drawings in there, or some of the less commonly used Google apps. But there's an option at the bottom that says connect more apps, and it brings up just a little search window, and you can search for different apps that you use. So for example, I use Formative a lot this year. Our county bought a subscription to Go Formative, and I can actually connect my Go Formative account directly to my Google Drive. And so essentially what it'll do is I can go down there and go to the more, and then when I click on Formative, it's creating a new Formative assignment. And so what it'll do is it will open up the Formative site with a new Formative already created. And again, it may not be a huge deal, but it saves you a lot of steps. You don't have to go through the process of opening a new tab and finding where you've bookmarked that site and then logging into that site and all that kind of stuff. It will automatically create a new one right then and right there. And a lot of these apps, it will have that automatically put into whatever folder you want it to go into. So it's a really great thing. And most of the big ed tech kind of apps are going to be in there. So I know like Formative's in there, Pear Deck is in there. I've seen Nearpod in there. So you can create new Nearpods or new Pear Decks or anything. And chances are, if it's a tech app that you use pretty often, there's probably going to be an integration into Google Classroom or into Google Drive for you to use. So look for those and utilize that. It's definitely a great time saver. Another really great tip in Google Drive, and I believe that I heard this on one of Casey Bell's Shake Up Learning podcast episodes, but I've heard it in a couple of different areas too, is to utilize the descriptions feature in Google Drive. So if you don't know about this, when you click on a file up in the top right corner, or it's also possibly in the right click menu, there's the little information button icon. It's the circle with the lowercase I inside of it. So when you click on that button, it tells you information about the file. So, it'll tell you it's a Google Doc. It'll tell you how big it is, where it's located, and all that kind of stuff. But if you scroll down, you'll actually see a little field that says description. And there's the little pencil icon to be able to edit it. Now, one of the key things to know about this is that anything in the description is also searchable in the Google Drive search. So what that means is you can add keywords or you can add tags in the description to make that searchable. So I like to use this, especially with a lot of reading selections I have. So I might have various reading selections in different folders or whatnot, and I've used them in different years and all that. So I will add something like narrative and maybe some of the thematic ideas that are present in that particular selection. So I might classify them by genre: fiction, nonfiction, article, informational, blah, 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 blah. I might also throw in some of those key concepts or key skills that students would be working on, main idea or whatnot. And with that in the description, now all of a sudden that becomes searchable. So if I'm looking for maybe a reading passage that I've used for identifying main idea, I can type in main idea and then it's going to pull up any reading texts. Any files that have main idea, but then also in the description itself. So I'm more likely to see some of those reading passages. And that's just a really cool feature that a lot of people don't know about. So take advantage of that. You can utilize your standards in class and skills that you work on, add them to those descriptions, and then pull from that when you do searches. The next great feature is the ability to make any file available offline. Now, you can also do this within the individual app. So if you have a Google Doc file open or a Google Slides file open, you can do it there, but also you can do it directly from the Google Drive itself. So offline mode allows you to have access to files when you don't have an internet connection, but you have to toggle these on in order for that to happen. So what you'll do is if you've got a file, let's say, you're going to be, without internet on a trip or something like that, and you're going to work on it, you click on that file and right click on it, and you'll have the option. There's a toggle option that says available offline. So all you do is you toggle that on, and now that file is going to be available offline. And essentially what that means is you can access it and you can open it up and even edit it without having to have an internet connection. Now, this is a great option if you have students who are working on Google Files in class but don't have internet at home. And what it does is, let's say you got a student who is working on an assignment for you in a Google Doc, and they don't have access to the internet at home, you can get them to toggle that online mode or offline mode on. When they open it up at home, they're still going to be able to make changes. They're going to do all the changes to it. Anything that you can do essentially without internet access. So they can add, all that stuff in the Google Doc itself, and it will save it on the computer basically. Then when they return to school and establish another internet connection, it's going to sync that file with the cloud online drive. So they're going to see that, and then it syncs up, and then they can continue working on it. So it's a really, really great option for those that don't have access to internet at home to be able to stay caught up in class if they're having to do some of that stuff at home. And the last thing I want to talk about is just some of the advanced search features. So you probably know the search, so I can type in a keyword and it's going to pull up anything. But sometimes you might search for something and it pulls so many files that it takes such a long time to look through. There's some advanced features that can be helpful in finding some of those. And to find this, all you're going to do is in the search field at the top where it says search and drive, on the right side of that is a little down arrow, and then all of a sudden you've got some of these other features that are available. So a couple of them that I just wanted to point out. One is the search by type. So sometimes I might search for something if I'm trying to find something that I've used maybe a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly what I named that file. Then I'm usually trying to hit some specific keywords. So it might have been, theme or whatever. That's very general, and it's going to pull up a lot of files. But maybe I remember that it was something that I had in a Google slide. I can click type, and then I can click presentations. And then it's only going to show me Google Slides file. And, something broad, it might still not, there might still be a ton of results there, but it at least filters it out to some of those things that I know that it is for sure not a Google Doc or anything like that. The other thing that it's great if you're searching for something that somebody else sent you is the owner field, and you can click to a couple of the options that you have is anything that's owned by me, which I wouldn't really suggest because most of the stuff that's going to pop up in a search are things that are owned by you. But you can also do stuff that's not owned by me, which filters out, probably going to filter out a lot of the results that you don't need if you know somebody else sent it to you. But what I like is the specific person option. You can click that, and then you can enter the name or the email address of the person who sent that to you, and it's only going to show results of somebody that that specific person that owns any documents they've sent to you. So that is definitely helpful. And then the date modified option is a really good one. So you can click if it's something that you've been recently working on. Say you can choose the option in the last 30 days, and it's only going to show you anything that has that, which again is helpful for any kind of searches that you might do that has a broad kind of concept and might return 1,000 different files for you. You can narrow it down to something that you worked on, this week maybe, and it's going to show you a lot fewer results. And then the last one, which is probably not going to be super big, but there's a checkbox where you can add any items in trash. So anything that you search for, it's not going to show any results that are in the trash part of Google Drive. But you can toggle that option on just to check. Maybe it was something you accidentally deleted or whatever. Just keep in mind Google's new trash policy. Anything that is in the trash after 30 days will be permanently deleted. So obviously it's not going to show you as many results because a lot of those that have been in there longer are going to be gone. So that's just a handful of tips and features that are available in Google Drive that I thought a lot of people may not know a whole lot about. So hopefully that gives you some ideas and new things that you can use, mostly just to help you stay more organized in Google Drive and find stuff a lot easier. So hopefully you have gained some useful information and have been able to level up just a little bit of maybe your daily routine. Up next, we're going to get our 8-Bit Crew question of the week. All right, folks, let's take a look or a listen at this week's question of the week. This week, I've got kind of a tough one. This goes back to the treasure chest from earlier in this episode where we're talking about the value that you bring to an hour. And my question for you is, what value are you bringing into your classroom? So what I kind of came up with this on the whim just when I saw the quote. And I didn't really think much about it, but when I started thinking about it, I thought, man, it's an actually really a tough question to think about. What kind of value do you bring to your classroom? What kind of value do I bring to my classroom? And to be honest, there are a lot of days where I don't feel like I bring much value to them. But I think if I had to say some things that I pretty consistently bring to the table in my classroom, outside of trying to get my students to think critically and to develop their skills. One of the things that comes to the forefront of my mind is bringing the idea that I am an advocate for them, that I will do anything within my power to help them out, but also anything in my power to stand up for them, that they are, they are a lot like my own children in a way, not quite to the level that my own child is, but I spend so much time with them that they do become kind of like family to me, and I always want them to know that I've got their back. And most days I think I guess I would say I do a pretty decent job, but obviously I fail at that a good bit. So probably maybe a little bit of a deeper digging into this question than in most weeks. So what do you got for me? What value do you bring to your classroom? I'd love to hear some of the ideas that you have of things that you do and ways that you add to what you're already doing in class. So if you want to respond, you can tag me on Twitter at Comic Socks, or you can use the hashtag 8BitCrew, or you can leave a comment on the show notes at 8bitinstructor.com. Well, that will just about wrap up this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate the support out there. Make sure to subscribe if you've been listening to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, now on YouTube even, so you can subscribe to that YouTube channel if you'd like. And please make sure to share the show with someone else who you think might benefit from listening. I'd love to hear the stories, and also I'd love to get some of you guys on. I'd love to hear things that you are doing in class, things that you are trying. Honestly, whether they are successful or not, I love hearing new ideas. Because that is how we learn and how we grow in our job. So with that being said, I hope all of you stay safe out there. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the work that you are doing. Keep getting out there, keep giving it your best, and keep leveling up your teaching craft. And of course, until next week, may your swords stay sharp and your shields hold strong. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the 8-Bit Instructor YouTube channel for EdTech tips and tutorials, as well as other content on my website, 8bitinstructor.com. And of course, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ComicSocks and use the hashtag 8BitCrew. See you next week.